They expected relief ships, not a burned sky and steel rain. The mining colony of Kepler 442b had been silent for 3 standard days. Director Yalin Koreth stood in the emergency command center of the orbital station Prosperity's Edge, her 6 arms working frantically across multiple control surfaces. The Thakari were natural multitaskers. Their species evolved from tree-dwelling creatures that needed to manipulate tools while maintaining their grip on branches. Today, that evolutionary advantage felt meaningless against the crisis unfolding below. Still no response from the surface installations, reported communications specialist Varen, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. The atmospheric processors went offline first, then the mining platforms, and finally the residential domes. Whatever hit them moved systematically through every sector. Yalin's primary eyes focused on the tactical display while her secondary pair monitored resource allocation screens. The colony below housed 847,000 beings from 12 different species, all working together in the Galactic Mining Consortium's most productive facility. The planet's crust contained rare elements essential for faster-than-light drive construction, making it invaluable to interstellar civilization. "Sensor analysis of the attack?" she asked, though she dreaded the answer. Tactical Officer Nexim's crystalline features flickered with bioluminescent stress patterns. His species, the Viridian, communicated as much through light as sound. The rapid flickering indicated extreme anxiety. "Unknown vessels, Director. They emerged from the asteroid field without warning. Energy signatures don't match any known technology in our databases. The attack was surgical. They targeted life support and communication systems specifically." "Pirates?" asked Security Chief Romax, though his tone suggested he already knew better. The massive Brachnori rarely showed fear, their thick hides and natural armor making them formidable warriors. But Yalin could see the tension in his posture, the way his clawed hands gripped the edge of the tactical display. "No," Nexim replied definitively, his lights dimming to a worried blue. "Pirates want to steal, not exterminate. These attackers showed no interest in the mine equipment or processed materials. They targeted the population directly, methodically destroying everything that could sustain life." Yalin felt her stomach sink. In the 3 centuries since the Galactic Mining Consortium had been established, they had never faced an extinction-level threat. Pirates, equipment failures, natural disasters, all manageable problems with established protocols. This was something entirely different, something that defied every contingency plan they had developed. "Send the distress beacon," she ordered, her voice steadier than she felt. "Maximum range, all frequencies. Emergency priority Alpha, someone has to help us." The message went out across space, carrying their coordinates and a desperate plea for assistance. It would take time to reach the nearest military installations, and Yelin wasn't sure they had time to spare. The attackers had demonstrated methodical efficiency that suggested they weren't finished with their work. 2 hours later, her worst fears were confirmed. "Director," Varen called out, his voice breaking slightly. "I'm detecting movement on the surface. The attackers, they're landing troops. Massive transport vessels, hundreds of them." The main display showed thermal imaging from their remaining satellites. Enormous transport ships were depositing what looked like armies across the planet's surface. The numbers were staggering. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers moving with mechanical precision toward the population centers. The formations were too organized, too coordinated to be anything but professional military forces. "Any response to our distress call?" Yalin asked, though she already knew the answer from Varen's dejected expression. "Negative, Director. The Consortium security fleet is engaged in the Outer Rim conflicts. The Galactic Defense Force has no available units within 6 parsecs. The nearest military response is at least 6 days away, possibly longer if they encounter resistance en route." 6 days. Yalin closed all 6 of her eyes briefly, calculating the mathematics of survival. Whatever was happening on the surface would be finished long before help arrived. The attackers had chosen their timing perfectly, striking when the system was most vulnerable. The hours that followed were a nightmare of unanswered questions and growing horror. Reports filtered up from the planet through automated systems before they too went dark one by one. Atmospheric composition was being systematically altered, with toxic compounds being introduced into the air supplies. Temperature readings showed massive fires burning across entire continents, consuming forests and cities alike. Most disturbing of all, the life sign detectors showed the population numbers dropping at an exponential rate. Director, Nexim reported during what felt like the 100th crisis update, his bioluminescent patterns now showing deep purple distress signals. Long-range sensors are detecting additional ships approaching the planet. Configuration unknown, but they're moving fast. Very fast. Yellen's heart sank further. More attackers meant any hope of survivor rescue was evaporating. She prepared to order the evacuation of the orbital station when Varen suddenly straightened at his post, his antennae quivering with excitement. "Wait," he said, his voice filled with confusion rather than despair. "I'm receiving a transmission. Unknown origin, but it's not from the attackers. The signal is incredibly powerful, overpowering everything else on the communication spectrum." "Put it through," Yellen ordered immediately, hoping against hope. The communication system crackled to life, and a voice filled the command center. It was unlike anything Yellen had ever heard. Not the musical tones of her own species, not the harmonic frequencies of the Viridian, not the bass rumbles of the Brachnori. This voice was somehow both gentle and terrifying, carrying undertones that spoke of barely restrained violence and absolute confidence. "Mining Station Prosperity's Edge. This is Captain Joe Reyes of the Earth Expeditionary Fleet, responding to your distress signal. We are inbound to your position and preparing to render immediate assistance to all surviving personnel." The command center fell silent. Every being present stared at the communication console as if it might provide answers to the 1,000 questions racing through their minds. Yellen had never heard of Earth or its people, but something about the captain's voice made her believe that help had finally arrived. "Captain Reyes," she responded quickly, fighting to keep desperation out of her voice. "This is Director Yellen Kareth. We have a population of nearly 1 million beings under attack by unknown forces. Our surface installations are completely compromised, and we believe the attackers are conducting systematic extermination operations across all inhabited continents." There was a brief pause before the human captain responded, and when he did, his voice carried a note of barely controlled fury. "Understood, Director. We're tracking the hostile forces on our sensors. Their activities are unacceptable. Estimated time to weapons range is 47 minutes. Please transmit all available tactical data on the enemy forces and defensive installations." "Captain," Yellen said carefully, "I must inform you that our sensors indicate the attacking fleet numbers over 300 vessels, including multiple capital ships of unknown configuration. They've already proven capable of overwhelming our planetary defense systems, which were considered state-of-the-art by consortium standards." Another pause, shorter this time, but somehow more ominous. "Director, how many survivors do you estimate remain on the surface?" Yellen checked her displays, her heart sinking at the numbers. The life sign detectors had been systematically destroyed, but their last readings painted a grim picture. "Unknown, Captain. Our monitoring systems went offline 8 hours ago, but at last count, perhaps 200,000 beings scattered across multiple continents. They're hiding in underground facilities, natural caves, anywhere they can find shelter." "Copy that, Director. 200,000 souls." The way the human said it made the number sound sacred somehow, as if each life was precious beyond measure. "Captain Reyes out." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Finally, Security Chief Romax spoke up, his voice filled with confusion and growing hope. "How many ships do these humans have?" he asked, leaning forward to study the tactical displays. Yellen turned to Nexim, who was studying his sensor displays with intense concentration. His bioluminescent pattern showed confusion mixed with something that might have been awe. "According to long-range sensors," Nexim said slowly, as if he couldn't believe his own readings, "the approaching fleet consists of 7 vessels." "7?" Romax's voice rose in disbelief, his clawed hands gripping the console. 7 ships against 300? These humans must be insane, or they have no idea what they're flying into. Before anyone could respond, Varen's communication board lit up with activity, alarms chiming as multiple channels activated simultaneously. Director, I'm receiving multiple transmissions from the surface. The attackers they're broadcasting on all frequencies. What are they saying? Yalin demanded, dreading the answer. Varen's expression grew grim as he listened to the intercepted communications. They're calling themselves the Purification Fleet. They claim they're cleansing the galaxy of what they call inferior species to make room for what they term the Evolved. And Director, he paused, his voice becoming horrified. They're broadcasting the locations of survivor enclaves. It sounds like they're hunting down everyone they missed in the initial attack, turning it into some kind of sick game. Yalin felt her blood turn cold. The attackers weren't just killing, they were playing with their victims, turning survival into a sadistic sport. The systematic nature of their assault wasn't just military efficiency, it was deliberate cruelty designed to maximize suffering. Incoming transmission from the human fleet, Varen announced, his voice tight with anticipation. Captain Reyes? Yalin asked. Negative, Director. This is Admiral Isabella Vasquez, commanding the Earth Expeditionary Fleet. Captain Reyes serves under my command. The new voice was female, carrying the same dangerous undertones as the captain's, but with an additional layer of authority that made everyone in the command center stand straighter involuntarily. Admiral, Yalin began, the situation on the surface is deteriorating rapidly. The attackers are systematically hunting survivors, broadcasting their locations as part of some twisted game. I fear that by the time any conventional rescue operation could be mounted... We're aware, Director. We've been monitoring their communication since we entered the system. The Admiral's voice carried a note of barely controlled fury that made the air in the command center feel suddenly cold. These Purification Fleet bastards just made their last mistake. Admiral, with respect, your fleet is heavily outnumbered. Perhaps evacuation of the remaining survivors would be the wiser course of action. We could coordinate with other systems to provide refugee assistance. The silence that followed lasted so long that Yalin wondered if the transmission had been cut. When Admiral Vasquez finally spoke, her words sent a chill through every being in the command center. Director, there's something you need to understand about humans. We don't abandon our own, and after what these monsters have done, everyone on that planet is our own now. We don't evacuate when innocents are being slaughtered. We end the bastards doing the slaughtering. The transmission cut to static, leaving the command center in tense silence that was broken only by the hum of life support systems and the distant sounds of orbital mechanics. Tactical display maximum magnification, Yalin ordered, her voice barely above a whisper. The main screen shifted to show the approaching human fleet. 7 ships as Nexum had reported, but as the sensors focused and began providing detailed analysis, Yalin realized that these weren't ordinary vessels by any definition. Each ship was massive, easily dwarfing the largest consortium vessels, their hulls dark and angular, covered in what looked like weapon emplacements arranged in overlapping patterns. They moved through space with a predatory grace that suggested incredible power held in careful check. Energy signatures are off the scale, Nexum reported, his lights flickering rapidly in patterns that indicated extreme excitement mixed with fear. Director, these ships are generating more power than our entire orbital platform. Their reactor output it's impossible by our understanding of physics. How is that possible? Romax asked, his warrior's instincts clearly recognizing the threat these vessels represented. Before anyone could attempt an answer, the human fleet reached weapons range. What happened next would be burned into Yalin's memory for the rest of her life, a moment that redefined her understanding of what warfare could become. The late human ship, designated as Admiral Vasquez's flagship, according to their transponder signals, opened fire first. What erupted from its weapons wasn't the familiar energy beams or plasma bolts that dominated galactic warfare. Instead, streams of projectiles moving at incredible velocity tore through space toward the Purification Fleet, leaving trails of superheated plasma in their wake. At the same time, missile pods along the ship's hull opened like blooming flowers, launching what looked like hundreds of guided warheads that immediately began maneuvering independently. The Purification Fleet, caught completely off guard by the sudden attack and the unconventional weapons, tried to respond with their own energy weapons. Their return fire lit up space with familiar plasma beams and particle cannon bursts, But something impossible happened when they struck the human ships. The attack seemed to simply disappear against the human armor, absorbed by hull plating that showed no signs of damage. "Impossible!" Nexim whispered, his lights dim with shock. "The human projectiles are moving at nearly 20% of light speed. How do they generate that kind of velocity? And their defensive systems, they're absorbing energy that should be vaporizing those ships." The answer became clear as Yalin watched the tactical display with growing amazement. The human weapons weren't just advanced, they represented a completely different approach to warfare. Their projectile weapons used magnetic acceleration systems to achieve velocities that turned simple metal slugs into planet-cracking weapons. Their missiles were guided by artificial intelligences that adapted to enemy countermeasures in real time, learning and evolving their attack patterns with each passing second. But it was their tactics that truly set them apart from anything in galactic military doctrine. The 7 human ships didn't fight like a conventional fleet, maintaining formation and exchanging broadsides with their enemies. Instead, they moved in perfect coordination, each vessel covering the other's approach vectors while maintaining overlapping fields of fire. It was like watching a pack of predators take down much larger prey through superior strategy, coordination, and an intimate understanding of violence. The first Purification Fleet ship exploded in a ball of fire that could be seen clearly from the orbital platform. Then the second, its hull splitting apart as human projectiles punched through armor that had seemed impenetrable. Then the third, fourth, and fifth in rapid succession. "They're slaughtering them," Romax said, his voice filled with awe and something that might have been fear. "I've never seen anything like this. It's not a battle, it's an execution." The space battle continued for exactly 1 hour and 17 minutes. When it ended, the space around Kepler 442b was filled with the burning hulks of Purification Fleet vessels, their wreckage drifting in slowly expanding clouds of debris. Over 300 enemy ships had been reduced to scrap metal and cooling plasma, while the human fleet showed only minor scoring on their hull plating. But Yalin knew the real test was yet to come. Space combat was one thing, but the planet below still held hundreds of thousands of enemy troops conducting their systematic genocide. "Admiral Vasquez to Prosperity's Edge," came the transmission, the Admiral's voice now carrying a note of grim satisfaction. "Here, Admiral," Yelena responded immediately, her voice filled with newfound hope and lingering disbelief. "Director, we're beginning planetary assault operations. Our ground forces are deploying to eliminate remaining Purification Fleet troops and secure all survivor enclaves. We'll need complete tactical data on surface installations, population centers, and any intelligence you have on enemy ground operations." "Of course, Admiral, but the enemy ground forces number in the hundreds of thousands, possibly more. How many troops are you deploying for the planetary assault?" 14,000 Marines, Director. It'll be enough." Yalin exchanged glances with her staff, seeing her own disbelief reflected in their expressions. 14,000 against hundreds of thousands seemed impossible. But after what she'd witnessed in space, she was beginning to understand that humans operated by different rules entirely. The planetary assault began at dawn on Kepler 442b's primary continent. Human dropships descended through the atmosphere like falling stars, their hulls glowing from re-entry heat as they punched through the cloud cover. As they broke through into clear air, Yalin could see them on the surface monitoring systems. Massive black vessels that looked more like mobile fortresses than transport craft, bristling with weapons and landing with controlled violence that shook the ground for kilometers around. The first engagement took place in the ruins of New Harmony, the planet's largest city. A Purification Fleet battalion had been systematically exterminating survivors hiding in the underground maintenance tunnels. Taking their time with the hunt, savoring the fear of their victims, they had no idea that death was falling from the sky toward them. Colonel Miguel Santos stepped off his dropship into what could only be described as hell. The city burned around him, smoke and ash filling the air while the stench of death permeated everything. His enhanced senses, products of military augmentation programs that push human biology to its limits, immediately cataloged threats and opportunities across a 3-kilometer radius. Behind him, his Marines spread out in perfect tactical formation, their movements precise and deadly. "Bravo, Company, secure the northern residential sector. Charlie Company, take the South Industrial Zone. Delta Company, you're with me. We're going underground after the survivors. He ordered through his communications system, his voice calm despite the devastation surrounding them. The Marines move like ghosts through the ruined city, their armor designed to absorb sensor sweeps and provide perfect camouflage in urban environments. Each soldier carried weapons that represented the pinnacle of human military technology. Rifles that fired hypervelocity rounds capable of punching through heavy armor, grenade launchers with smart ammunition that could navigate around obstacles to reach the targets, and close combat weapons designed specifically for tunnel fighting. They found the first group of Purification Fleet soldiers in what had been the city's central plaza. 12 aliens in powered armor were executing captured civilians for sport, broadcasting their actions to terrorize other survivors hiding throughout the city. They were laughing as they selected their next victims, treating murder like entertainment. They never saw the humans coming. Staff Sergeant Luna Kowalski's rifle spoke once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. 3 Purification Fleet soldiers died before they could react, their armor proving useless against human weapons technology. Her squad members opened fire simultaneously, their coordinated assault eliminating the entire enemy patrol in under 10 seconds of precise, devastating firepower. Survivors secured, Luna reported calmly as her medic began treating the wounded civilians, her voice showing no emotion despite the horror she'd just witnessed. Moving to next grid reference. Similar engagements were taking place across the planet. Human Marines operating in small unit tactics that emphasized speed, surprise, and overwhelming violence systematically dismantled Purification Fleet ground operations. They moved through urban environments like they were born for it, using every piece of cover, every tactical advantage, every psychological weapon in their considerable arsenal. But it was in the underground tunnels where the humans truly demonstrated their capabilities. The Purification Fleet had adapted their hunting tactics to the confined spaces, using their superior numbers to flush out survivors like animals. What they encountered instead were human Marines who had trained for tunnel warfare in conflicts that had shaped their entire civilization. Captain Rosa Chen led her company through the maintenance tunnels beneath New Harmony's government district. Her point man, equipped with sensors that could detect movement through solid rock, had identified Purification Fleet forces ahead, at least 2 companies' worth of enemy soldiers systematically hunting civilian survivors in the tunnel network. "They're using sonic weapons to drive the civilians toward kill zones," reported her tactical specialist, his voice tight with controlled anger. "Estimated 40 families trapped in Section C7, with enemy forces closing in from 3 directions." Rosa checked her tactical display, noting enemy positions and civilian locations. The enemy had superior numbers and knew the tunnel layout better, having had days to map the underground systems. But they had made one critical mistake. They had no idea what humans were capable of in close quarters combat. Alpha Squad, Breach Point Delta, Bravo Squad, Breach Point Gamma. Charlie Squad, you're with me through the central access tunnel. We go in fast, we go in quiet, and we make sure every civilian gets out alive. Questions? There were no questions. Her Marines knew their jobs. The assault began with precise explosions as human breach charges opened multiple entry points simultaneously. Purification Fleet soldiers, expecting to continue their hunt unopposed, found themselves facing professional soldiers who had spent their entire careers preparing for exactly this type of warfare. Human tunnel fighting doctrine was elegantly simple: overwhelming violence of action in confined spaces where superior numbers meant nothing. The Marines moved through the tunnels like a deadly tide, their weapons adapted for close-range combat, their tactics refined through centuries of urban warfare experience on dozens of worlds. The battle was swift and brutal. Purification Fleet soldiers, used to hunting terrified civilians, found themselves completely outmatched by humans who fought with clinical precision and absolute ruthlessness. Within 30 minutes, the tunnel network was secure, and 43 families of various species were being evacuated to safety by human medics. Similar operations continued across the planet for 3 days. Human Marines, working in small units that could respond rapidly to changing situations, systematically eliminated every Purification Fleet ground force while rescuing survivors from seemingly impossible situations. Their casualty count was astonishingly low: 17 wounded, 0 killed, while enemy casualties numbered in the hundreds of thousands. On the fourth day, Admiral Vasquez requested a meeting with Director Yalin aboard the flagship Retribution. Yalin took a shuttle to the massive human vessel, accompanied by her senior staff. What she found aboard the ship both impressed and deeply disturbed her. The human ship was a marvel of military engineering, but it was also something more sinister. Every surface was dedicated to warfare. Weapon systems, armor plating, sensors designed to track targets across interstellar distances, communication systems that could coordinate attacks across multiple star systems. The crew moved with professional efficiency, but there was something about their demeanor that made Yalin profoundly uncomfortable. These beings had seen war on a scale she couldn't imagine, and war had fundamentally changed them. Admiral Vasquez met them in a conference room that doubled as a tactical planning center. She was a tall woman with graying hair and visible scars that spoke of personal combat experience spanning decades. Her eyes held the same dangerous intelligence that Yalin had heard in her voice, but they also held something else. A cold calculation that made every being in the room feel like they were being evaluated as potential threats. Director Kareth, the Admiral began, her voice carrying an authority that seemed to fill the room. I wanted to brief you on our operations and discuss the future security arrangements for this system. Admiral, I cannot express how grateful we are for your intervention. Your people saved nearly 200,000 lives. Without your assistance, we would have lost everything. 187,432 to be exact. Vasquez replied without hesitation. We keep precise count of every life saved and every life lost. Each number represents individuals with families, dreams, and futures that we've helped preserve. The precision of the number sent a chill through Yalin. These humans didn't just save lives, they quantified them, tracked them, made them personal in a way that suggested they never forgot the cost of failure. What about the Purification Fleet? Asked Security Chief Romax, his warrior's instincts clearly recognizing that this conversation was heading somewhere he wouldn't like. Are they likely to return to the system? Admiral Vasquez's expression grew cold in a way that made the room's temperature seem to drop several degrees. They won't be returning, anywhere, ever. Our intelligence division has extracted complete information about their operations from captured personnel. Every ship, every base, every leader, every supporter, we know where they are and we're systematically eliminating them throughout this sector. You're planning to hunt them down across multiple systems? Yalin asked, though she already knew the answer from the Admiral's expression. Director, the Purification Fleet has been operating for decades, exterminating entire species across the galaxy. They've killed billions of innocent beings, destroyed countless civilizations, and left a trail of genocide that spans hundreds of worlds. That ends now, permanently. What about this system? Asked Communications Specialist Varen, his antennae twitching nervously. Will you be establishing any kind of ongoing presence here? The silence that followed made everyone in the room profoundly uncomfortable. Finally, Admiral Vasquez spoke and her words changed everything. Director, Earth's policy regarding humanitarian operations is comprehensive. We don't just solve immediate problems, we ensure they don't happen again. A human garrison will be established to protect this system and its inhabitants from any future threats. For how long? Yalin asked, though she suspected she wouldn't like the answer. Permanently, Director. This system is now under Earth's protection. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Yalin realized that while the humans had indeed saved them from the Purification Fleet, they had also fundamentally changed the nature of their existence. The mining consortium had asked for rescue and received something far more complex and permanent. What does that mean for our operations? She asked carefully, trying to keep her voice neutral. The mining continues under consortium management, with Earth providing security oversight. Your people are free to govern themselves within the framework of galactic security requirements that we'll be establishing. It was a polite way of saying that Earth would be making all the important decisions from now on. As Yalin and her staff returned to their shuttle, she couldn't shake the feeling that they had traded one form of domination for another. The humans had saved them, yes, but at what cost? The Purification Fleet had wanted to exterminate them quickly. The humans seemed content to protect them permanently, but protection and freedom were apparently different concepts in human thinking. 3 months later, as Yellen watched human construction crews building massive defense installations around the planet, she received her answer. Earth's protection was indeed permanent, thorough, and absolute. The mining consortium had asked for relief ships and received something far more transformative. They had received Earth's version of humanitarian aid. In the space around Kepler, 442b, human patrol ships moved in constant vigilance, their sensors sweeping continuously for threats. On the planet's surface, human garrisons protected every major population center, their presence a constant reminder of the new reality. In the system's communication networks, human intelligence officers monitored all transmissions for potential security concerns. The purification fleet was gone, just as Admiral Vasquez had promised. Intelligence reports confirmed that human forces had systematically dismantled their entire organization across multiple sectors, eliminating every ship, every base, every leader with methodical efficiency. The galaxy was safer, but it was also forever changed by the methods used to achieve that safety. Yalen stood in her office, looking out at the orbital installations that now bore both Consortium and Earth insignia. Her people were safe, their children would grow up without fear of extinction, and their civilization would continue. But they would continue under the watchful eye of beings who had proven themselves to be the most effective predators in the galaxy. She had asked for relief ships and received something far more complex. She had received humanity's promise that nothing would ever threaten her people again. Whether that was salvation or conquest would depend on how one chose to define the terms. The age of Earth's protection had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.